Join us on Patreon and become part of our journey to uncover history's untold stories. Your support helps us create in-depth content, bring hidden narratives to life, and keep history alive for everyone.
For centuries, the borders of ancient lands have been etched and redrawn, not just by war or politics, but by the stories we choose to believe. Maps, those silent yet potent tools of history, hold truths long buried beneath layers of imperialism, theology, and modern academic gatekeeping. And perhaps one of the most provocative claims surfacing in recent years is this: what if ancient Israel was not where we have been told it was? What if the lands of the patriarchs, prophets, and kings of the Bible were not situated in the current-day Middle East, but rather deeper into the heart of Africa? Could ancient maps, cartographic clues, and suppressed geographic records unveil a long-lost truth? It is a notion so bold it challenges not only religious tradition, but also colonial-era historical constructions, and yet the evidence is there, waiting to be re-examined. To understand the hidden layers of this mystery, one must first revisit the ancient world before borders as we know them existed. The earliest maps, many produced by Greco-Roman, Islamic, and early Christian cartographers, often portrayed the world through spiritual and symbolic lenses. In these maps, Africa was not simply a distant continent. It was central, vibrant, and massive, often labeled as the cradle of humanity and the seed of divine revelations. Early T&O maps, created in medieval Europe, placed Jerusalem at the center, but did so as a theological statement more than a geographical one. But earlier still, maps and texts from Babylonian, Egyptian, and Ethiopian origins told a very different story, one that didn't isolate Israel to a narrow strip of land on the eastern edge of the Mediterranean. The Nile River, that life-giving artery of Africa, played a key role in connecting civilizations across the continent. In fact, many biblical events traditionally placed in Palestine make more sense when viewed through the lens of African geography. Consider the frequent biblical references to Egypt, Ethiopia, Cush, and the land of Sheba. These were not remote places in the biblical narrative. They were intertwined with Israel's very origin, culture, and identity. Cush, known today as parts of Sudan and Ethiopia, was often depicted in ancient maps as bordering the lands of the Hebrews. And the Queen of Sheba, who visited King Solomon with wealth and wisdom, is believed in Ethiopian tradition to have been a ruler from the Horn of Africa, not the Arabian Peninsula. The Ethiopians never forgot this connection, maintaining for millennia that the Solomonic dynasty, which ruled Ethiopia until 1974, descended from Solomon himself through Sheba. When one examines maps from antiquity through the Renaissance, an intriguing pattern emerges. Numerous cartographers, including Ptolemy in the 2nd century AD, placed certain Semitic tribes and even the name Judah or Yudah within the African continent. The 1747 map by French cartographer Guillaume de Lisle shows a region in West Africa labeled Kingdom of Judah near the Slave Coast, a strange but potent echo of the biblical tribe. This placement has led many researchers to question how such a name appeared there, especially in proximity to where millions of enslaved Africans, many of them from Igbo, Yoruba, and Ashanti backgrounds, were later captured and shipped to the Americas. These same ethnic groups often maintained oral histories claiming descent from Israelites. The Igbos of Nigeria, for example, have long professed to be descendants of the lost tribes of Israel. Their customs, circumcision on the 8th day, kosher-like dietary rules, Levitical-style priesthood, and Sabbath observance mirror ancient Hebrew practices. When combined with historical cartography, these traditions take on new weight. If mapmakers as late as the 18th century still located Judah within Africa, what might that say about the true geographic scope of biblical Israel? Another compelling thread lies in the ancient Jewish communities of Africa. Long before the modern state of Israel was established in the 20th century, there were vibrant Jewish populations spread throughout Africa, from the Beta Israel of Ethiopia to the Lemba people of Zimbabwe and South Africa. These were not recent converts, but communities with traditions stretching back thousands of years, claiming descent from ancient Israelites who had migrated southward through Egypt or across the Red Sea. DNA studies on the Lemba, for example, have revealed significant markers linked to the ancient Jewish priesthood, particularly the Kohanim line. How could such distinct Jewish practices and lineages have found their way so deeply into Africa without an original homeland nearby? Religious texts further complicate the picture. The Bible itself contains numerous geographic allusions that blur the lines between the Levant and Africa. The Garden of Eden, described in Genesis, is said to be near the Gihon River, which compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia. This would place the biblical origin story much closer to Africa than the Fertile Crescent. Furthermore, the children of Israel spent centuries in Egypt, Africa's most famous civilization, not merely as slaves, but as residents who grew into a nation there. Moses himself was raised in an African royal household. And after fleeing Egypt, where did Joseph's family find refuge? In Goshen, also in northeastern Africa. Perhaps one of the most startling revelations comes from medieval Islamic geographers, many of whom inherited and improved upon Greco-Roman knowledge. Their maps often depicted the Holy Land not as a Middle Eastern outpost, but as a territory directly linked to Northeast Africa. The proximity of Mecca and Medina to the Horn of Africa on these maps further emphasizes how ancient people understood regional geography, not through modern political boundaries, but through trade routes, spiritual networks, and bloodlines. The shifting of Israel out of Africa and into the Middle East, according to some researchers, may have had less to do with historical fact and more with imperial agendas. During the colonial and post-colonial eras, European powers redrew the religious and historical narratives of conquered territories to fit Eurocentric worldviews. This meant locating biblical events in places that aligned with European theological visions, rather than indigenous memories. It also meant de-Africanizing holy figures, reimagining a Semitic and possibly Black Messiah as a pale European icon, and obscuring Israelite presence in Africa as an inconvenient truth. What remains today are fragments, old maps in dusty libraries, oral traditions whispered among elders, and archaeological clues that are often dismissed by mainstream academia. Yet the evidence continues to mount. The ancient kingdom of Aksum in Ethiopia, one of the earliest Christian empires, claimed direct ties to Israel. The Ark of the Covenant is believed by Ethiopian Christians to be housed in Aksum to this day. And the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, older than most Western churches, retains scriptures and stories that speak of an Israel that is inseparably African. In the end, the question of Israel's original location is not simply a cartographic one. It is about identity, power, and truth. If Israel was indeed in Africa, or at least far more African than commonly acknowledged, then history as we know it would demand a rewriting. The implications would ripple through religion, politics, and education, reshaping how we understand the past and who we believe ourselves to be today. Ancient maps, once regarded as relics of a primitive time, may in fact be the key to unlocking a forbidden geography, one that connects Israel not to the arid lands of the modern Middle East, but to the fertile, spiritual heart of Africa.